This video where we look at all the liquify tools in Illustrator. We're going to take text and we're going to make it all drippy and droopy. We're going to make it explode, kind of crystallize. We're going to twirl it, more exploding, make it pucker, make it bloat, more wiggling, and then there's only 7 tools, so this guy doesn't do anything. But the rest of them are pretty cool. Let's learn how to do that now in Adobe Illustrator. To get started, you can open up just a plain old document. I'm opening up a document from the exercise files, okay, called, where is it? Liquify. There you are. Click open. The reason you can just, it's just a blank document, but I wanted to put this kind of like gray to gray gradient in the background for no good reason, just kind of looks nice. All right, so we're going to use type to do, like you saw at the beginning there. So we're going to grab our type tool. Okay, we're going to click once to get our point type box. We're going to type in our name. I'm Dan Scott or Daniel Scott or Daniel Walter Scott. So I've typed in my name. I've gone back to my black arrow just out of habit. And I'm going to pick a font and a color and a size. So you do the same. I'm going to use Lust. Which one are the Lust? Go Lust script. This one here, Lust script, is from Typekit. You can go and download that. I'm going to bump the size up to something like that. Works for me. In terms of the fill color, I'm going to pick just the kind of an off-white to go with my gray moody background. All right, we need enough space because I've given you a nice long document here. It doesn't matter what size it is, but I want to put 8 of these in here. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to kind of stack them next to each other. So once you get to here, I can kind of guess. So pick a font size that works so you can put a bunch of them on the page. All right, for this to work, what we need to do is we need to do something called outlining the text, because this at the moment is editable text. We can't destroy it like you saw at the beginning without kind of breaking it apart. So the good thing is that we get to use our liquify tools. The problem is we can't change the spelling or the font or the size afterwards. So we need to break it apart. A really good habit to get into is to copy and paste it and just have a version up here for later on, because it'll be months and you'll come back and you'll be like, oh yeah, what was that font? And you'll be like, oh, I have no idea, because once you've broken it apart, it won't tell you that it's Lust script. So it's just handy to have over there. So this version here with it selected with my black arrow, go up to type, and there's one in here that says create outlines. Okay, and watch what happens to it. Just kind of, nothing really changes except now if I zoom in, okay, it's no longer editable text. It's telling me it's not Lust. Still looks the same, but I can't like double click with my type tool and try and go into it to change it. Where did we end up? Remember this from the beginning? We are lost. Things are gone weird. Okay, we're in something called isolation mode. Remember? Click the arrow a couple of times to come back out. Because at the moment by default it's all grouped. So if you double click it, you're inside that group. All right, let's move on to the liquify tools. Actually, we can't, not just yet. So we've broken it apart. We need a few duplicates. So I'm going to copy and paste it. Okay, and just kind of line it up and try and get 4 across the top and 4 across the bottom. I'm going to use my trick where I'm dragging with my black arrow and I'm holding Alt down on a PC or Option on a Mac and just trying to get all of these. So what I might do is select them all over here. Okay, there's my line panel. I'm going to pop this little triple dot open and go in here and say I want to distribute them horizontally. Then I'm going to drag out another copy. I've got loads to practice on. So select this guy, zoom in. And our liquify tools are in this kind of group here. The one on top is called the width tool. Click and hold him down, and we want to start with the warp tool. Okay, and by default, I'm not sure your brush size is going to be the same as mine. So I'll show you how to change that before we get going, because the brush size is quite important. To change the brush sizes, like we did with the pencil tool. Remember how, anybody remember how we changed the pencil tool? Okay, we changed the smoothness and fidelity and stuff, remember? You double click it. So you double click it and we get our warp tool options. Okay, and width and height. Okay, let's just put in 50 points high, 50 points wide. So you deal with the width and intensity. Don't worry too much about anything else in here. It's the size. For some reason you have to do the width and the height separately, but the intensity is quite important. That'll make a bit more sense as we go along. So let's click OK. I've got a size about this. I've got it selected. Okay, so my black arrow, got it selected. Go to my warp tool. Where are you, warp tool? Okay, and it does this. So this one here, we're going to do this kind of like dripping, melting text thing. Okay, so you can see it's quite cool, huh? Love it. Liquify, I'm just kind of clicking and dragging across it. Drippy text, very cool. Okay, so I might go over with one kind of original pass, and then I'm going to go through maybe with a smaller brush. So remember, double click the warp tool and go in here, and I'm going to go 20 by 20. Okay, click OK. I'm going to zoom in a bit and do some like micro blobs within these bits because I want it to kind of look like it's dripping. Kind of dragging it out so I get a line and then kind of dragging it down. Totally illegible name now. I love it though. Alright, I'm going to leave it there and move on to the next tool. I lie, I'm going to grab the ellipse tool and do like a little drip hanging off the bottom. Maybe a couple of them. Alright, that's the forward warp tool. Cool, huh? So we've done it with text. You can do it with any sort of drawing you've done. Remember our penguin from earlier on? You could open him up, and make him melt in the sun. But let's look at some of the other liquify tools. So I'm going to have this one selected with my black arrow. Click and hold down, and we're going to work our way through all of them. Let me show you these next two at least, and all the rest you could probably, once you've kind of worked out the basics, you can go and do your own. We'll do them all together, but let's look at the twirl tool. Now the twirl tool, okay, let's double click it. And let's turn our brush size back up to, let's go to, I'm just picking 40. You don't have to pick my sizes. You might have different size fonts. Okay, you can adjust this. Intensity though, if I leave it at 50, watch this. It goes and goes quite fast. Okay, so if I like to, you can add your own sound effects in there. So under intensity, I'm going to turn it down to say 20%, just so that when it's twirling, it's not going so fast. Cool. You can kind of see what we're going to do, right? I'm going to grab this kind of thing that's already quite twirled and drag it out like this, and you get this kind of cool twirling thing going on. All right, I'm going to try and get this end down the bottom here. Watch this. So if I click it once and just hold, I get a twirl. But if I click hold and drag it, it kind of starts looping back on itself, and you can move it around. I'm just kind of mixing it up to, I don't know. It's getting quite complicated. See all the little blue dots? Those are anchor points, and there's just like, to make that curve work, there are so many needed. So it's stressing my machine out a little bit. If you're working on a really old, slow machine, yours is probably going to freak out a little bit, but hopefully not. Totally illegible, but very cool. Oh, look at that. Oh, I liked it. It was good for a second. No, hang on. Oh. Okay, I'm getting myself excited. Look at that. That's cool. I'm going to click my black arrow, click in the background to get a good sense of it. You can see some cool stuff you can do. Now we're doing it with type again, illustrations, shapes you've drawn. Okay, super cool. I'm going to click on this guy with the black arrow. I'm going to look at one more, look at pucker. Okay, so pucker and bloat, one makes it smaller, one makes it bigger. So these kind of go hand in hand. And let's have a little look. I'm going to make the brush size bigger. Teasing you. Come on, use it, Dan. Show us what it does. Okay, if I click on it, it sucks into the center. But the intensity is probably a little too strong. Okay, so double click it. And for some reason, even down at 20%, like this tool needs to get down to like 2%. I'm not sure who decided how the intensity all worked, but sometimes 50%, sometimes 20, sometimes 2. So I need to play around with it. So I'm going to click on this. I'm just clicking once with my mouse. If you click and hold, it works. That's kind of cool. It's a different kind of font now, but so awesome. Let's stick around the middle of this stuff and go. Ah, we're awesome. So that is the pucker. This last one here, you can imagine what the bloat tool does. So you can just skip on and just start playing with it yourself now. I'm going to go through them all just so you get an idea of how I use it at least. I like to kind of like click in some of these, like I'll use the target right in the center, okay, to kind of blob out bits. Still pretty cool. Right in the center of that. Not my best. Don Scott. Yep. So let's have a look at some of the other ones. Okay. It is all about experimenting, right? So scallop, crystallize, and wrinkle all end up not looking the exact same, but they crinkle the edges. Okay. But they work slightly different ways. Scallop kind of like drags it in on itself. So it's kind of like blasting inwards. And then say crystallize does the opposite and kind of blasts it out. Oh, I'm going to experiment with different ones. Yep. Okay, and actually I've said you had to have it selected. I always assumed you did. Okay, it's actually easier. Okay, learning is, we're all learning. You don't actually have to have it selected, and it's actually a little easier to work with when it's not selected. You don't see all the blue lines everywhere. So, crystallize explodes out, scallop goes in on itself, and then wrinkle just kind of like makes the edges wrinkly. It does a bit of both. So you got to kind of give this one a wriggle around. Okay, and I might have to turn the intensity up on this one. You're like, it doesn't do anything, Dan. Okay, intensity at 2, not so good. Let's go up to 20. Okay, and you can see it's wrinkling the edges. So it's going a bit of both. Not as sharp. All right, that, my friends, is the Liquify tools. What I would like you to do is I would like to see what you've done with your name. Okay, so I would like you to type out your name, practice with some of these, and yeah, send me a screenshot or save a JPEG and share it with us on social media. So remember, on Twitter, it's tuts+design, or me personally, I'm Dan Loves Adobe, or on Instagram, bring your own laptop. You're sick of that, right? I'll stop saying it. It's the last time I talk about social media. If you haven't done it already, you're not going to do it. All right, Don Scott, we will see you in the very next video where we look at something similar. We're going to bend and warp type rather than this kind of more liquify stuff. I'll show you what I mean in the very next video. I'll see you there. Hi there, and in this video, we're going to take these super straight lines and bend them all sorts of different ways to get effects like this with just one click. We're going to do it with the lines, we'll do it with type, we'll do it with all sorts of shapes. Same lines, one click effects. Beautiful-ish. Some of them are crimes against design. Some of them super smooth, super nice. It's really easy to do. Let's look at how to do it now in Illustrator. All right, to get started from your exercise files, look for a file called envelope distort. I'll let you go and open that one. You don't have to. All that I've got in here is I've got a bunch of rectangles. Okay, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. I've put a tiny gradient in them for no reason. Goes from a lighter green to a slightly darker green. It's hardly noticeable, and I've just stacked them on top of each other. Now, the one thing that we need to do, okay, is that we need to group all of these together. So we're going to select them all. So black arrow, draw a box around them all, or shift click them all. Okay, and then go to object and just make sure they're grouped. Now we're going to go to our effects panel and we're going to come down to warp. And there's a bunch to pick from. Just pick the first one. Okay, whee. Okay, and make sure preview's turned on. Okay, and then you can just slowly work your way through all these different settings. I'll go through them real quick now so you can see what they all do rather than you having to do it. So arc does an arc. Lower arc kind of bulges out the bottom. Same at the top for arc upper. Arch, kind of like a rainbow. Bulge, okay. Shell, I'm not going to read them out. You can see them. Shell upper, I'm going to read them out. Flag, love. Wave, not so loved. Fish. Never find it useful, but really want to. Rise, look at that. Some cool stuff, huh? It just means it's just really hard to do some of this stuff with like the pen tool and the curvature tool. It's often just easier to draw some shapes and then bend and twist them. So it's kind of like what we did in the last video where we lose liquify, but it's, I guess, a bit more consistent. So once you pick one, say I like the flag. And you can see you can do it vertically or horizontally. Okay, and where it says bend, you can drag this left and right, depending on how much bend you want. Okay, then you can play with these two different horizontal and vertical distortions. You get some cool stuff, huh? Look at that. Okay, ooh, look at that. Bends around on itself. So pick one, start messing around with these different settings. If you do pick one, and because now if I go through, it's going to remember these settings that I've picked, these kind of strange horizontal, vertical. So sometimes you might have to go back into it and say, actually, put that back to 0. Put that back to 0, just to kind of, make it a bit more how it came out of the box. Oh, cool. All right, so I'm going to pick one. I'm going to pick my flag. And I'm going to make sure it's horizontal. And I'm going to play around with that. So it's all kind of like coming out of this point here and flaring out. Ah, cool. Let's click OK. Because I want to show you a couple of things. One is you've done it, and you're like, actually, I want to change that now. So I click on it. It's kind of weird, right? Because it's in, like the liquify tool we did earlier. You can't undo that. Like, once you've done it and you've saved the document, it's done forever. Whereas this, you can kind of still see my rectangles across there. It's this kind of like active effect. What's cool about that is that you can go and change it. So in my parents panel over here, you can see warp flag is applied. Click on it and go, actually, clients come back and said, like it. Can we lower it down a bit? And you're like, sure, easy. Can I go and change it? Yep, warp, pick flag, back to my lovely fish. Alright, cancel. One of the weird things that's going to happen though is, like, say I like this, but I want it kind of flaring off the top of the page here. So I want to rotate it. Look what happens. Click and rotate. I have to use the edge of the box here. Okay, not the edge of this projecting kind of effect, but the kind of original rectangles here. And watch this. If I do it around this way, can you see? It's an effect that's trying to make it go horizontal still. So that's a bit weird. So I'm going to undo till it's back to normal. To get around that, what you need to do is basically the same as what we did earlier with the type. Remember we outlined it, okay? But with an object, it's called expand appearance. So object, expand appearance, and you'll notice that it becomes, you can't see those little stripy lines through the middle now. It's kind of just a full effect. It's committed forever. I can't change it now, which is a drawback, so you might want to copy and paste it before you do this, but I get to rotate it. I'm going to rotate it around. You can squish the ends. Okay, now it's just a regular old shape. I'm going to rotate it back around, something like this. I'm going to have type coming out the side for no good reason, just because I want to show you how to do it with type and the pros and cons for that. So type tool, click on it. We're using